Okay, so thank you so much everyone for joining us today. Uh, as a Pakistan user group, we are hosting a monthly sessions onto the upcoming latest and the greatest technologies and events. What we would like to do is we would like to start things to all the volunteer speakers and the attendees today, which have joined us today. And special thanks to all the speakers from Microsoft. I know it's been so many years then where I was just trying to get hold of all these super people. They are doing a fantastic job, awesome work, guys, there. And but thank you so much for joining us so late at your time. And especially all the attendees who have joined us today during their office hours, because without attendees, no event can be successful. Otherwise, we can have one-to-one calls. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. Pakistan User Group is a place where we welcome everyone from across the globe. It focuses on Microsoft Dynamics 365 and Power Platform. And also now we are going to add more from the Azure. So it actually helps the community to upskill, learn, share, and learn each other with all together. Now, if you really want to join, I would request everyone and urge to do join Pakistan User Group. We recently have done a few collaboration events, which I'm going to talk a little bit further. But do join our Pakistan User Group on LinkedIn, on Meetup, and all the sessions recordings will be available on our YouTube channel. We have done recently few collaborations. I forgot to put that slide here, but we recently done a one Power Platform conversion series with the collaboration of India User Group, Pakistan User Group, and ANZ User Group. So I myself live in Australia in Melbourne, but I'm leading and all the Pakistan user group from very far away from my home country. But we are doing a work for the whole community for Pakistan, India, and Australia and New Zealand here. So I and my team members, especially Rachit from here, we both are running three different user groups, staying very far away from our homeland. So recently we have done a one collaboration with Code Girls and Women in Tech PK. These are the two biggest female communities in back in Pakistan. So they are helping all the women who really want to pursue their career in technologies. They have some gaps in uh, in the career. They were doing some job, then got married, got into some family involvements. They really want to come back. So we are going to collaborate with these two female oriented groups there and going to provide them and will help them, support them. And this is where I also seek some help from Microsoft in collaboration, so that we can provide a good platform. We can teach them, we can educate them how and support them how they can come back to Microsoft stack easily. Power Platform, no code, Azure, wherever they want to learn, we are open to help them. And that's completely free. There is no charges, no fees for that one. That's completely a free collaboration. Another milestone which we are going to achieve, and we are going to start a skill up training, and that is completely a non-IT professionals and student training. The aim is to provide a training from zero level. If you are doing your metric, if you are into a grade 12, or if you are just finishing your university, most of the times back in India and Pakistan, we are lacking things where we do not know much from our universities where to go and what course we should be pursuing in our professional careers. So what we are gathering a professional, some experienced professional across the globe. We have a list of contents which we are going to announce very soon, maybe first week of November, and going to provide non-IT professional and students a training platform. So we are going to cover Power Platform, customer engagement, and most importantly, finance and operations, and Azure too. It's very hard to get training on finance and operations due to so many restrictions, but this is where We have been working hard to get all the environments up and running for you, and we will provide you access onto the finance and operations environment so that you can play and run all the integrations yourself. With this one, I would like to thank all the great people from Microsoft, Samazaki with us, Sabine Nair, Mudit, and Gunter from Australia. Rest of all the three speakers are from United States. Without any further ado, I'll hand over to Sabine. Thank you, Sabine.
Great. Let me share my screen. Okay. Actually, while we do that, it's taking its own sweet time. Should we just do a quick round of intro, guys? So my name is Sabine Nair. I'm a program manager in the Dataverse team, more specifically working on Synapse Link for Dataverse. We worked on several other pieces, like including dual write and a bunch of other things with Mudit. So let Mudit go next, and then maybe Sama and Kuntal.
Hi everyone, my name is Mudit Mittal. I'm a group engineering manager and my team owns Azure Synapse Link for Dataverse. And most of us are based out of Seattle. Thanks.
Hi everyone, my name's Sama and I'm a PM on Dataverse.
Hello everyone, my name is Kuntal. I work with the Fast Track team based out in Sydney, Australia, and work very closely with Azure Synapse Link for Dataverse team as well. Welcome to this exciting session.
Great. I'm just going to switch screens. Okay. All right, let's go. So thank you. First of all, we appreciate the opportunity. I was telling Faisal, like we've been at this for a while, trying to make this happen, and things got like extremely busy. So we just couldn't make it happen. So we are pretty humbled by this opportunity. And as I said in LinkedIn, we would love to learn from people as to how they are using it, what are the gaps that they see. So Synapse Link for Dataverse, that is the topic. In terms of agenda is how are customers using it. So we wanted to start with, rather than talk about the tech, let's talk about the use cases, what we see today. One of the cool things is, as working for Microsoft, is like you get to talk to a lot of customers on a daily basis. And trust me, these customers are not trying to meet with you to say how beautiful your service is. They probably have some issues that they ran into or some kind of advisory thing. So we love that. We love people who keep us like to the ground. We Nothing is flawless here. We learn from everything that we put out there. But it's great to see kind of the adoption. So we'll talk about what we are seeing in the market. The second thing is, of course, the tech, like what is Synapse Link for Dataverse, how it came to be. Then we have a cool demo. That's pretty much what our agenda is, and we'll try to cover the entirety of it. So we would love if people come in and ask questions. There is no script we are following. If you want us to stop, maybe I will give my pause after a couple of slides, and we could take questions as well. On the side, if you have questions to do on IAM, we have a lot of experts here who can help as well. So don't feel that you cannot stop us. Like we do this every day. So trust me. Okay, so just a quick thing of try not to like take pictures, tweet the usual. Let's all do the right thing here. Um, okay, so how are customers using Synapse Link? Now, before I even go to the first use case, I think one thing to know is the common use cases is like, people who are using the sales app and field and customer service, they're using for building a lot of these sales type reports, like the year over year revenue, some of these customizations, and that's primarily how it helps, like our services help there. They may do some transformations, some customizations there, and then use it for some downstream integration. So these things are usually what people do. Now, because of the pandemic, unfortunately, it was humbling to know that people are using us to this platform to build some of the COVID-related reports. And I'm broadly putting it as COVID-related. It could be some PPE equipment inventory that they're tracking, which we'll do a demo for. It could be some lab numbers that they're trying to show. It could be some patient-related data, or it could be just like tracking the COVID cases. So a lot of countries, a lot of states in the US are using this as we speak. And the patterns are very similar. So they have data stored in Dataverse. They export that to Synapse using Synapse Link. And there they would use pipelines, which is like an ELT. They would do data transformation. They may use Spark to do some of this. And then they feed it to a Power BI report. They may even like store it in an intermediary store like an Azure SQL, but eventually to a Power BI dashboard. So this is how people are using, like one of the use cases. And unfortunately, as I said, it's humbling to know this, but it's also a very common use case that we see the platform being used. Now, there are variations to this. Um, like this is another example of what we see, but it applies in both the cases. If you see in the middle, as I said, you could use pipelines, or you could also pull data from external. Like it could be in some cases, they're pulling data from external labs and trying to mix with the data, or they could pull data from external to do something else, like, kind of do a mashup with the data. And then the visualization sometimes can be in Spark because Spark has some of the built-in visualization. Now I'm using these Spark and ADF, assuming everybody knows everything. But I can tell you in a few words, think of like Spark in this case is synonymous to like anytime the big data comes into the picture. So it provides you like a web interface, like what is called a notebook, where you could define the data prep, you can define the visualizations. So all that of the code piece kind of is in the notebook, and then rest of it is how it actually works behind the scenes with all this big data. So Spark is ready to run. Like you will see some slides where we always say it's ready to run these things, because the cool things about what we built is we are trying to make sure the end user has to do less. So you can push the data and start working on the data. And that's what the main purpose is. Now, in terms of use cases, it doesn't end here. As I said, sales reporting on sales and all those things are pretty common. We've also seen some charity organizations which use this to figure out what kind of services are most commonly used. Those are some basic use cases, but also like some propensity and predictive modeling, like in terms of behavior, which customers in the charity organizations are coming back, and they can even start predicting who will come back based on certain behaviors. So that's like the next level of reporting for those guys. So some of these cases wherein it's used for all of the AI integration, and that's how we envision this going forward as well. That's what the power of Synapse kind of brings to you. It's kind of the AI and ML is kind of integrated with it. So there is a ton you could do with the data in there. So this kind of gives you in a nutshell, and people like Kuntal, they may have like 100 other uh, common use cases that we can share later. So this is some of it. But to tell you about how we came here, the next couple of slides are primarily about that. So if you remember, we had a service called Export to Data Lake. So we that was primarily about moving Dataverse data to the lake. There's no Synapse in there. There was no compute. Now that's still there. We still support it. What we learned from customers is when you keep it that open, then the onus is on the customer to go figure out a tool. Some people do. Some people probably struggle, like figure out how do I get the compute to do certain things. So that's when Synapse came along, and we were amongst the first people, believe it or not, to work with the Synapse team right when it was put together. In fact, Mudit and folks started testing it very early, like 2-3 years back. So since then, we have come a long way, and it just seemed like the perfect tool. The advantage being, as I said, we are trying to provide something which is out of the box, kind of built in. Customers don't have to do much. Few clicks, push the data, and start working on the data. And that's where our vision is. That's where we are headed. Like a one single tool, one single solution, kind of end to end, and customers don't have to look for anything else. And you'll see Synapse, there is a ton of muscle being put in there, so it will keep growing. So it seems like a good marriage that kind of works. So that's kind of the investment that we have done so far. If I go further, like one of the things, as I said, export to data lake is what happened. And we found that, in the lake, compute was one of the challenges. The other thing is a lot of people are used to just making like SQL type queries. That's how they inspect the data. That's how they probably are interfacing with the data typically. So Synapse again comes into the picture there, where in something called like a serverless SQL, which is extremely popular today, you could use that to inspect the data that is in the lake without actually moving the data. So there is no additional hop. The data is still in the lakes. You're using Synapse to just kind of inspect that. You could use pipelines, which is nothing but like ADF under the hood, to do some of the ELT pieces, some of the transformation. Spark similarly can be used for a bunch of transformation for pulling data from outside. It's just like pipeline, but primarily for big data. And of course, it has integration with Power BI. In fact, in our demo, I believe we'll show you that with direct query, and also the Azure machine learning that is kind of integrated. So that's how this kind of came to be. And like I'm sure you've spoken to other Microsoft people. It's not like we sit in a corner or we have some bright idea and it just comes together. We learn as we go. We build what is best, like at that point or a few, maybe a year out, that is good, and then we kind of keep building and iterating on it. So this is the story of how Synapse Link came to be. And then there was a branding change, Expo to Data Lake. We just kind of renamed it, added this new feature, and next week we should hopefully announce G8 Ignite. So that's what it is in a nutshell. Just walking through a few quick slides. Just keep me honest on time, okay? So as I mentioned, like, in this case, it's truly there is product truth behind our marketing pitch of few clicks, because this is literally a few clicks. So there is an expectation that you have already pre-created your Synapse workspace. You come to the Power Apps portal, you see something called Azure Synapse Link. There's a little checkbox today, it's preview. Next week, hopefully it will G8, and then you should not see the preview anymore. You click on that. Based on the user who's logged in, it will pick the subscription. You can choose your own after that. You'll pick the resource group, and then you pick the Synapse workspace, and then it automatically picks the storage account behind it. So that's pretty much what you provide, and then you select the tables that you need. Now, what we are not showing here is there are modes on how we write data to the lake. It could be an in place or an append only. We have plenty of documentation on it. If you have questions, more than happy to handle it. But think of it this way, that when you have large amounts of data, the way we go see things going is like append only is a very, very strong mode. And that's how we recommend everybody to go in that direction. We'll talk a lot about this append only and how that will like change some things in the future. Parquet, that's a question that always comes up. That's some exciting things that will come. But anyways, coming back to this, you select the tables, you move forward. This is just a screen to show that the tables are actually now already started syncing. Some have already completed. And then, oh, I missed out on this cool thing. So you will see that at the right at the top, let me go back. I don't know why the deck is moving very slow. So right at the top, you'll see a little shortcut to take you to Synapse Link. And these are like small things that we have done wherein we are trying to like stitch the two clouds. Like in the Azure cloud, where we're trying to say it's not a different service. You don't have to go to portal.azure. You can just directly go seamlessly from the Power Apps Maker portal to Synapse Link. And once you go to Synapse Link site, then you'll see that, hey, this is all, these experiences are kind of ready to run. So you can right click and someone will show you how you can inspect using serverless SQL really quick. Here is a list of like how we can do a simple query. This is what people are using nowadays to do some of these things. Then same thing with Spark. This is an example of, I think, one of the demos that we did about finding out the top satisfied customers by bringing data from outside, including Dataverse, and stitching that together. And same for pipelines, which is again in the demo today. We'll show you some of the pipeline stuff as well. Sorry, it's just really, really slow. Okay, so that's the pipeline. Now, without any further ado, we'll head to the demo. I'll just give you a quick overview of what the demo is. And as I said, this kind of covers some of the patterns that we are seeing. So we are picking a similar example of, think of I'm running the Contoso Medical Center. I have two, just think of that I have, for sake of simplicity, I have two tables, account and PP inventory. Now, one of the challenges that everybody can associate with and they've heard is hospitals now need to make sure that they have the right amount of inventory, especially when the patients are kind of flowing in. Now, how do I know that I have the right inventory? So one of the things that we kind of are explaining in this demo is we are comparing the Contoso inventory with the inventory published by an external source. So think of the county that I'm in actually is publishing the required inventory for a hospital. So I'm comparing both inventory and producing a simple output of like which of my inventory is in line, or is it low, or is it high? So that's what we're after. And for this, we will do some transformation and Sama will walk you through that. So just think about this as like my inventory compared with an external published inventory, external guidance, and just producing a dashboard. So we'll use, of course, Dataverse, Synapse, we'll use pipelines and Spark, and then Power BI. So over to you, Sama. And by the way, any questions? Happy to take it now. Okay.
Hi, Sabine.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is Rachit. So first of all, thanks for showing us the roadmap and the capabilities. It looks really exciting. Just one question: what would you recommend for people who are new to this area and maybe they work in dynamic space, but they have not really worked with these Synapse pipelines and data factory? So what can be a good starting point to learn these platforms?
So, I mean, others feel free to chime in, Mudit, if you have something as well. I would say, like, in the past, we would always tell people that anytime you attend our session, we'll say, learn CDM. That's like step number one, assuming you already know Dataverse and Dynamics, all right? So CDM was like new at that time. I would continue to say that, like, you should know CDM, but we've kind of done some magic here wherein you don't have to work with the model.json and all those things. That seems almost seamless. We've done work to make that secret sauce, but still it's good to know CDM format. The second piece is Synapse itself. It's an absolute must-have knowledge, I would say. So try to learn the individual pieces. Maybe you start there, like with ADF, do some simple things like pulling data from Dataverse or into Dataverse. There are many such options you'll see on YouTube. In fact, that's how I started learning some of this, actually. It's not like we just know it, right? So ADF is one of the things, and Spark, it is simpler than it sounds. It's not as scary. And in fact, one of the experts we have in our room is Sama, apart from Mudit and others. So Spark is definitely, and like server SQL, I would assume most people, like, I think it's like T-SQL more than anything, but a lot of people can easily do that without a whole lot of, like, even if you have past experience, that will. So if you just learn this individually, then you'll be able to kind of do the magic with it. But Mudit and Sama, like anything that you want to add, feel free.
So there's, like it's an interesting thing. I learned this from a friend. There is a virtual course related to Synapse, okay, which is a step-by-step course. I just pasted link for one of that. Okay, offline, Faisal, I can share the details of this. Okay, this virtual training. That may be very helpful to learn Synapse and the different components inside Synapse.
Yeah, that would be really great, Mudit.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks for that.
It's Anas here. I got a quick question.
Yeah.
So Sabine, as I'm understanding, coming from D365 finance and operation background, we need a sync between a Dataverse and D365. And it looks like we're talking about if we need to go for this as as a business intelligence solution for reporting, we are talking about a secondary synchronization happening between Synapse and Dataverse. Is that a true statement?
I didn't catch the first part. You said, are you asking me if there is an equivalent in finance and operations? Is that what you're asking?
No, basically like putting the entire thing into one equation, right? So coming from D365, the very first thing that needs to be enabled is the Dataverse data synchronization to be able to push customer masters, GL opening balances, and stuff like that. Then from there, once the data, as we see, for instance, accounts and PPE inventory is in Dataverse, there's going to be a secondary synchronization that pushes the data to Synapse Analytics. And from there, there's going to be a Power BI reporting or any other tool for any sort of business intelligence reporting or forecasting of some sort. It's going to happen from Synapse. So if starting from finance and operation where the data resides, going into Dataverse stage 1, going into Synapse stage 2. So is there any concern of two synchronization if it's true, and any sort of delay till we get the data into our Power BI reporting?
So think of it as, I would actually look at it slightly differently. So there are technologies today, there are solutions today that is pulling the finance and operations data into Dataverse. You could say dual write is one of them, not because we built it. There are like you have other pieces as well. So if that is the case, if the data is in Dataverse, then you already got the picture. Now, coming to your question of your data probably is in finance and operations, and you're saying there's 2 hops. So there is an effort which is ongoing. I think it's, if I'm not wrong, it's already in preview. It's known as Como, Project Como, which is primarily about a similar solution of taking F&O data, finance and operations data, to lake. We work very closely with them. In fact, Modit comes with a ton of F&O experience. So we work very closely with them. You will see pieces like uniting in a lot of places. In fact, literally between us, it was like, hey, we'll do Synapse first, and then you guys do it as well if things look good. So they will equally have a similar service. There's a possibility we may unify some of this. But I think the key thing to remember is that service, I believe, is already in preview, and it should GA pretty soon, if I'm not wrong. So if your question, if I'm answering your question correctly, from F&O, you do something similar, you don't have to go through Dataverse. There is a path through that, but there will be a direct path through, and I think there is something in preview. Did that answer your question?
That does. So then in that case, the data from finance and operation is going to be in data lakes, and then the data lakes would be connected to Synapse Analytics.
Correct. Absolutely correct. And you know,
and
like,
I thought that add-on was taken down even from the preview from LCS for some reason.
Yes, so yeah, I think so. There is a separate team, as Sabine didn't mention, Project Como. So I'm happy to share a link for that Yammer group, and happy to share the how you can raise that support request to get this one dedicated for your own tenant and environment. So even though it's taken down from the LCS to get this added installed, but you can raise a support ticket with Microsoft, provide them why do you need this one, and then they are happy to enable that one for you as your data lake.
I'll give you, like, Multh and I know these guys. We were on the call with them even today. So if now that we are here, shoot me an email. I'll help you directly get in touch with those guys.
Yeah, I'm in a contact
Thank
with
you so much.
Melinda.
Yeah,
I think so. That guy is Melinda. So I'm in a contact with him.
Yep.
So I can share contact details of him.
your Faisal knows everybody, man. So that's amazing. So that's cool, actually.
Yeah, thank you.
Anything
Thank
else?
you. That helps.
Sure. Anything else I can take before we pass it on? All right.
All good.
Sama, all yours.
All right, so I'm going to give you guys an overview of what we're going to be covering in the demo. Can everyone see my screen just for my own sanity check?
Yeah, we can.
Okay, so we're going to, of course, first create the Synapse link to connect Dataverse data over to Azure Synapse Analytics, but I want to dive a little bit deeper about what we'll be doing in Synapse before taking it to Power BI. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to use the Synapse SQL, serverless SQL compute to query the exported data and kind of see what functionalities are quickly and easily available in Synapse with serverless SQL. And then we're going to take the data and go to Spark. And within Spark, we're going to join the account data set as well as the PPE inventory data set and create a new table called PPE account. And that's where the joined data set will live. So once that joined data set is created, we'll take it over to Synapse pipelines, and we'll use Synapse pipelines to identify and derive a new column based on the joined data set for what inventory we're missing and how much we're missing it by. So then once I have that new table, then I'll take it over to Power BI and build my report based off of that. So don't worry, we'll go slow, we'll cover everything. And if you have any questions, please feel free to pause me, come off mute, and let me know what your question is. So with that, I will take you guys over to my browser. So this is the Power Platform Maker portal. Before you even come here, of course, the prerequisite is that you've already created your Synapse link and your Azure Data Lake storage container. So once you're here, Azure Synapse link lives under the Dataverse tab on the left-hand side, and you can start by creating a new link. And so now you have this box that will allow you to connect to your Azure Synapse Analytics workspace. And then all you have to do is fill out your resource group, your workspace name, and then your storage account, and then you can hit next, and then you can select the tables that you're interested in exporting for this link. So again, for the purposes of this demo, I've already created the link. So you would, of course, hit save, and then the link would create, but it's already here. And we can see that we've exported our account table and our personal protective equipment table, and we see what the counts are for each of those tables. So directly from here, again, as Sabine called out earlier, you have this great button that takes you directly to your Synapse workspace that's associated with that link. And once it authenticates me, it'll redirect me over to my workspace, and I will be able to expand my databases. Here we go. So I can expand my databases, and I'll have this Dataverse container. And underneath this Dataverse container, I will have the Dataverse tables that I've exported. So in this case, our account table, as well as the personal protective equipment table. So now we'll get started with the 3 computes that you can use in Synapse. So the first one we're going to cover is the serverless SQL pool. So to create a script, I'll hit the 3 buttons. I'll select new SQL script and then select top 100 rows. And then here, it'll pre-write me a script that selects the top 100 rows for my table and all of the columns associated with it. Of course, you can edit the script however you need it to be to query it however you want. So now I can see my 2 rows from my account table. And then I also have this great functionality called the chart functionality, where I can actually build a really quick visualization. And this is great for people who are trying to create, a quick visual to send in an email to a colleague or over Teams or something like that. This is a really great option, and you have quite a few different chart types, and you can categorize it accordingly. So that's kind of a quick overview of how you can use serverless SQL to query your Dataverse data that was exported. So from here, we'll go on to the second compute that you can use in Synapse, which is Spark. So I go again to these 3 little buttons or 3 little dots, and I see that I have this new notebook and load to data frame. And this is how I load that account data over into a Spark data frame. And a data frame is the object type for Spark. So in here, I would attach to a Spark pool, and then I would run this code cell, and I can add more code cells and build kind of a great notebook. So again, for the purposes of this demo, and I'm sure watching me code would not be super entertaining, we've already built a notebook over here, and we've already connected it to a Spark pool. So I'll kind of walk you through what this notebook is doing in the context of our demo scenario. So the first thing we want to do is I want to show you the Dataverse data sets and what columns we're interested in for each of those data sets. So for the PPE data set, we have the item, the inventory for that item, the unit we're counting that inventory in, and then the account ID that provided that item. From an account side, we have the account ID and the corresponding company name that provided this item for us. So what I want to do is I want to get a table where both of these are joined, and so that I can actually see the account name, because the account ID isn't super human readable, right? So I have this script which joins the Dataverse tables and then writes it into this new table called PPE account. So once that's created, I can actually query that table. So when I query from it, I now have my item, my inventory, my unit, the ID, as well as the name. And so that's kind of a really simple way that you can use Spark, because it's great for those large data set transformations, for a terabyte more data. And if you've noticed, these code cells are actually in different languages. So this code cell was in Python. This code cell is in SQL. So it's really great for stringing together different languages to do just, quick things that make the most sense for your data with that language. So that kind of covers that second compute that we were talking about, which is Spark. So moving on to the third compute, which is pipeline. So I've already created this pipeline. It's called calculate the PPE that's running low. And so to kind of double click in that pipeline, we'll take it over to this data flow. That's what the pipeline is running. And so in this data flow, what you see is that right here, I'm bringing in on-premises data from the county that is telling me what I should expect, like how much PPE I should have before I could be considered running low. And I join that with the PPE accounts table that we created in our Spark notebook in the previous step. Then I do the derived column to identify which ones are running low, and I do a little bit of formatting, and I end up with this data set that I sync back into my Spark database, where I see which items are running low, and if they are running low, by how much they're running low. So that's how we use pipelines to kind of derive a new column and get some new information from our join data set. So from here, we can actually go over to Power BI, which is that last step in our scenario. And I have this report that I created in advance. And if I refresh this report, it will fill up with all of our data. My laptop's running a little bit slow. So here we go. There we go. Okay, so this is how we now have a report that tells us which PPE is running low. It gives us pie charts and different distributions across our accounts that are providing this PPE. So that's just kind of a quick demo. I hope I didn't go too fast. I know because we're running a little bit low on time, but that's a really quick demo on how you can use the 3 computes that are provided to you in Synapse, which are your built-in serverless SQL pool to query the data, your Synapse Spark to do large data set transformations, and then your Synapse pipelines that allows you to access that workspace DB directly from pipelines, and you can land the data back in there. You could land it somewhere else. Of course, we landed it back in there, and then you can take it to Power BI to build a report. So hopefully that makes sense. With that, we would love to, are there any questions? Let me start there. Are there any questions so far about what we did in the demo? I don't know if I'm missing things in the chat. I hope Muda and Sabine have that one. Okay, good. Okay. Awesome. So with that,
A quick question.
sorry, yes, please go ahead.
Sorry. Yeah, just want to confirm. Python was one of the options, right? Not necessarily has to be that Synapse notebook does not have to be written in Python, right?
Yes, that is correct. So let me take you over the notebook. In Spark, you actually have quite a few different options. So you have Python, you have Scala, you have C#, and you also have SQL, which is like the Spark version of SQL. So you can use any of these languages, and the way we specify that is with this cell magic command is what it's called. And then you can specify the language and then write whatever script or code that you're writing after. And you can string together all 4 of the languages, 1 of the languages, 2, it's up to you. So it gives you a lot of flexibility with how you accomplish different tasks with Spark.
Thank you.
Awesome. Any other questions?
No question, but just a feedback. It was really great demo, Sabha.
Awesome. I'm glad you liked it. Okay, so then with that, we would love to get your opinions on Synapse Link for Dataverse. So if you guys are able, if you could please go to slido.com and enter this code 667445. And then we can kind of get your feedback on some of our questions. And Slido is loading. All right, and you can use the QR code too, if that's easier. So I'll give this a few seconds for you guys to get the codes in to get joined. All right, and Kuntal put the code in the chat, so if you're late joining, you can go from there. We'll start off with our first question. If I can find my mouse. Okay, there we go. So our first question for you is, are you interested in landing the exported Dataverse data into Azure Data Warehouse, also known as dedicated SQL, directly? So right now you have serverless, you have Spark, you have pipelines, but we're curious if you would also like it in dedicated SQL pool. And so this should be active. There we go. Now we're starting to get a few responses. I'll give it a few more seconds.
So you may have to consolidate data from Teams and your Slido now, because people have started saying yes into the Teams directly. So it will be a good exercise now to combine this data into Synapse and make this graph. Okay, yes and no.
Yes, this would be a great use case for it.
Yes.
Okay, that's great. Our second question for you guys.
I guess some people are commuting. Maybe that's what I think understood.
Yes.
Yes.
So our second question is, which of the built-in Synapse computes are you interested in using? And you should be allowed to select more than one, so feel free. But we have serverless, SQL query, Synapse Spark, as well as Synapse pipelines. And those are the three that we demoed today. All right, we're getting a few more responses now. This looks like serverless is going for the win for the most part.
Everyone wants serverless now.
Right. All right. Wow, record high. Last one was 4, now we're at 6. This is great. All right, I'll take us to the next one since this looks like it's stabilized. Okay, so our third and final question is, are you ready to bring your own compute, or do you want a Microsoft managed compute so that you do not have to worry about creating and providing your own Synapse workspace? Well, that was a quick response there.
Always Microsoft win. Always Microsoft win.
Wow,
Managed,
6
but with a low
6.
cost.
No, that's great. I mean, I think cost is one aspect. It's like if you don't have to worry about all the infra.
And also, like, you always have a Microsoft back. If you're stuck somewhere, let them handle and let them troubleshoot what's going on behind the scenes.
Yeah. No, that's a good thing. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
I would do the same thing.
That's a good use of the support contract or subscription.
No, good.
Awesome. I think that's actually our last question. So we would, of course, love to open it up to the audience. If you guys have any questions for us, we are to answer.
One question. Yeah, I could have one question, Samaj. So you showed us some demonstrations there. So how can, like, a person like myself who do not know anything in-depth details about all things which you have showed us today, like awesome things, like how can I prepare a simple demo for myself, like where to start, and do I need to be a developer? Do I need to be a technical person to write some queries, SQL, or on the other side, we are saying it's a no-code, low-code terminology is going on. But in Azure Synapse, I can see clearly someone has to understand how to write the SQL queries.
Right, that's a great question. So we actually do have lots of documentation available where it walks you through how to use each of these pieces. So it has an article specific to serverless, an article specific to Synapse or to Spark, kind of an article specific to bringing your data into Power BI. So that's number one, is we have lots of documentation, and that's just from our side. Synapse has a whole load of other documentation you can add on top of that if you're trying to do something specific. On top of all of that, though, what the great thing about using Synapse is that it's ready for any level of technical skill. So as you saw in my data flow, a lot of it was drag and drop. I didn't have to write a single line of code to use Synapse pipelines. And of course, we strung together all three computes to kind of show off how great each of them is. But if you are a new developer and you're not comfortable writing a lot of code, like pipelines is a great place to go for you, because it's a lot of drag and drop. And even if you are really technical, like pipelines, you can actually write code if you wanted to in there. So a lot of these options are really flexible on what level you're coming from a technical side. So, and again, there's lots of documentation. We have lots of communities for serverless SQL and Spark and all of these things that you can access if you have specific questions. And of course, we're all of us who are here are resources for you. If you're running into a difficult problem, we're happy to help as well.
That's really great. So nice of you. I just want to add one last point from my side based on to Anna's question previously. Like my background is also from finance and operations. So now I'm actually putting all the data to the Azure data lake. Now, what I'm thinking from the business perspective or case study perspective, like from finance and operations, I have also my customer engagement team. The underlying database is a Dataverse. So we have the finance and operations data going to the Azure. So now we are using this Synapse link to Dataverse, and we are pushing data from Dataverse to Azure. Have you seen any case study where you find and try to consolidate data from Dataverse and finance and operations right into the data lake? What the table structure would be, the data structure would be, how we are going to manage all these case studies there?
So,
Oh, go ahead. I was going to say, Sabine, do you want to take that one?
I'll take a part of it. I think even Mudit can chime in. So in terms of data structure, so remember that all the writers, us being one of them, we will always write in CDM format. So all the data that you'll get will be in that CDM structure. And the primary purpose is to be able to mix and match, just like you said. Now, are people doing this today wherein they're putting FNO data with Dataverse? There might be. I remember some very early use cases wherein customers, some very popular FNO customers actually trying it out because they were using both. So I know partially that, but I think Mudit, like you might have more experience in like he's half AX himself, so he could chime in actually.
Yeah, so that's actually a great question, and it just reminds me, Sabine, about one of the first slides we made when we were doing export to data lake. At that time, it was called that, right?
Yeah.
So interestingly, if you look at a customer, right, customer does not care about whether it is FNO or Dataverse. Okay, that's the whole reason the convergence and the UNO and the other efforts are happening, right? They have some data which is specific to their finance, supply chain, sitting in ERP. Okay. And then a certain set of data which is sales or field service, which is sitting in Dataverse. Yeah. And if we can go in past, maybe we had one product, right? But reality is today we have two, and we're trying to, kind of converge on them. Okay. Now, but for a customer, it's just different kind of data. One of the apps have sales data, the other app has like financial data, right? And most of the time to produce insights or even look at analytics, they need data from both applications. Okay. So honestly, if you talk about a customer who has Dataverse and FNO, both of them, would actually end up combining it. And this is where, the other discussion happens, whether it is a data lake, data pond, and, all that kind of stuff, data warehouse, right? You basically bring in data from all different sources. FNO and Dataverse is just, one of them. By the way, external data also comes. So when we talk to internal teams, there is interaction data, Outlook data, all that kind of stuff needs to be combined to produce insights. So why not Dataverse and FNO, right? Now, in terms of how would people do it, right? So for managed lake, we are working with FNO and Dataverse both to land the data together in a single lake, okay, which is the managed lake, okay?
Yep.
And eventually, even the bring your own lake would get, similar. There's even, internal discussions how we can, kind of conceptually have the same construct, same UI and all, right? Now, once the data lands into the lake, at the end of the day, the way we kind of think about it, it's going to be in tabular structure. You would have tables which would represent Dataverse. You would have tables which would represent FNO, and you would have tables which would even represent external data. Okay, there are things which we'll be doing in this semester, which obviously we can't disclose in detail right now, but which would also bring in external data to Synapse. Okay, so think about you have data from everywhere, and you have to kind of combine that to produce AI, ML, analytics, whatever you're thinking about it. Okay.
There is a question from Rachit on what is the roadmap for FNO? Are there any plans to move it to Dataverse, making it one, or use dual write and virtual entities? Like which one should we do? How do you want to answer that, Will?
Yeah, I don't know how many people know. My team actually built dual write, and
I know because and because I was one of the first adopters of the dual write, right from you, Mudit and Sabine. So.
And so, I come from a lot of FNO experience, as Sabine was saying. I've spent like more than 15 years in FNO. Okay. I can tell you, reality is the platform is going to eventually converge. There is no magic which can happen in a day, right? Think about like you guys are partners, ISVs, customers, you have tons of code, right? Both these products use different kind of, platform. So that convergence need to happen eventually. And the way to see, what dual rate is giving you, that is one of the click stops in the convergence. Okay. I can't reveal more on that. Okay. There is nothing secret also, honestly. But eventually, slowly and slowly, the gaps would reduce. An example is, like earlier there was data integrator, right? It was loosely coupled integration. Then there was tightly coupled integration like dual write. Now I know there are plans to even make it more tighter. Okay. And then there are also things like which Sunil and team are doing on business events, right? Where they are trying to expose even FNO side of events using virtual entities over Dataverse, right? And then we also are evaluating if we can support virtual entities with Synapse links for Dataverse. Okay, so eventually these things are going to converge. There is no magical solution, like which will happen in a day. Wherein like, when people say X++ would go away or like it's going to be, one thing, I don't know. I don't own those things. I don't have official answers, but I can tell you, it's going to take its own sweet time for those things to merge, right? We have customers running, and I would say like huge set of customers running on FNO and Dataverse both, right?
Yes.
Great.
So thank you so much, Mudit, for a detailed answer. So it will be a relax for so many FNO people here. Like we still have our job for a few more years. So we still can live into the finance and operation before we start moving our career to the Dataverse and the Azure. So don't worry, we still have few years ahead now.
That's great. No, it's as I said, it's I'm glad we could do it. We really appreciate the opportunity. So guys, one thing I would say, I'm hoping you could learn something new today. Please go try it out and then come back and let's have another session. Maybe that's what we do in the future.
Absolutely, yeah. So most likely we will plan something maybe November or December, whenever you guys are ready. So I'm happy to again host every one of you. So, and the last request was from my side is, so the demonstration which we showed me, because I really like that demonstration, I really want to have an access to that demonstration. Is there any step-by-step approach which you can share with all of us, like what you did by step, and then I want to try it myself, as Sabine said, and this is where I want to go back, try it myself, and come and learn with the questions and come back to you.
Yes, I will write something up and I'll share it with you, and you can share it with the group
Oh,
on how we
perfect.
did this. Yes.
Thanks so much. Thank you so much. That would be great.
Awesome.
Awesome.
And
So,
we
like, we'll take a last. Sorry, we'll take a last question here. If there's anything. Otherwise, guys, it's too late for everyone back in US.
Guys, Rachit, there's no question, but I just want to say thanks to Sabine, Sama, and Mudit. And I want to just add one thing. I saw Mudit around 10 years back when I attended the technical conference in Seattle, and I'm seeing him today. He carries the same energy and passion towards the Dynamics family of products. So we are following you guys, and we keep learning from you. So thanks a lot for sharing this information with us.
That's awesome. Now he'll keep talking about this all day tomorrow now. But
if it was not recorded, I would have told you, like, Rachit, it's just like in 10 years, I've not lost the passion. Just I've lost some hair, working with the X.
It's enough here. I would share the same experience. I worked with Mudit on one of our customer performance issues with the BYOD and overall data entities taking time back in. I mean, it sounds years, so many years, but it was 2019 if I'm not mistaken.
So I'll tell you this. See, I work with him day in and day out. We practically are together at almost every meeting. He is still the sharpest guy in the room. It's a fact. So at Microsoft. So that's not a small thing, right? So.
It happens with every sharpest guy who lost the hair.
We have Faisal as the benchmarking here.
So, thank you so much, guys, for your time. And I'll see you soon again then. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Kuntal, for joining us today. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Bye-bye.